I'm pretty excited about what's possible for Datasette in journalism, and Simon and I continued that conversation, getting much more technical. So if you want to do that with us, go ahead and watch this video. Otherwise, it's optional and you should feel free to skip it.
Well, there's a question you asked earlier on that I skipped over. You asked, like, why is this stuff free? I have previously founded a startup and ran it for a few years, and I got it acquired by a bigger company and all of that. And the product that we built is no longer available, which I'm really sad about. But for this particular project, if I'm building software to help newsrooms publish their data, the worst thing I could possibly do is get a bunch of newsrooms hooked on it and then go out of business, and then it disappears and all of that data is lost, right? I see that as that means that over the long term, I've created more harm than I have value in that ecosystem. So right from the very start, Datasette was always going to be open source. It also, being open source means that people can use it without asking me for it. There's a get out clause. If I get hit by a bus or if I lose interest in this project, the project can live on, which I think is really important. And actually, I'm now looking at ways of commercializing Datasette. I'm looking at, I would like to be able to afford to hire people to work on the project with me, which means it needs to have a business model. And actually, the open source business model is looking quite good these days, because part of your selling pitch is, sure, like Google have a version of this, but Google shut their stuff down all the time, right? If this thing, it's open source. If this company doesn't work out, you'll still be able to use the software. And also I've had dozens of people contribute, mostly small to medium-sized fixes. I've got a small but growing group of people writing plugins. This is pretty great. I've managed to get a hell of a lot done as basically a one-person development team, because I'm using the sort of by tying into the open source ecosystem.
And at the heart of Datasette is the SQLite database, which is a database file which is used by SQLite programs of all sorts.
Right. SQLite is it's the secret sauce in the middle of all of this. It is an astonishing piece of software. It's the world's most widely deployed database, because it's literally running on my watch right now. My step counter in the Apple Watch is, I'm pretty sure, using a SQLite database. If you I've got a command you can run on your Mac to find all of the SQLite database files, and you'll find Evernote using it, and Firefox saves its bookmarks and so on. So it means that SQLite is super well tested. It's the best tested piece of software I've ever seen. It's very ubiquitous, and it's complete. It's not even, it's public domain because of historic licensing decisions made by the author. But it's this wonderful, and they keep on releasing new features. SQLite gained like window functions last year, I think. And there was a new release just a few months ago that doubled the size of a SQLite database. It used to be 1.4 terabytes, and now it's a 2.8 terabyte limit, because a customer asked them for it. So somewhere out there is a like 1.5 terabyte SQLite database file, which is fascinating. But yeah, it's a really good basis to be building on.
When we're building a map, it's on deadline and we want to or publish some data, and it's like, this has to go out next week, and you're just like, okay, well, as long as it lasts for a couple of months, we're going to be fine. And but in reality, your point about the services going away, I started doing my database work early on in Google Fusion Tables. Google Fusion Tables no longer exists, and all of the projects that I built for journalism that used that before do not exist anymore either. And it's just interesting we have a sort of often a short-term time horizon for some of these things because you're making a deadline, but considering what will be able to live on later is so important. I totally agree. Anything else we're missing? Anything else we should touch on?
Okay, so there's a trick that you can do with Datasette, which is that you can actually use it to build complete websites. And so far, I believe I'm the only person who's done this, but I'm trying to get other people excited about it. And actually, the best demonstration of this is the Datasette website itself. If you go to datasette.io, this right here is Datasette. It's running with a custom template for the homepage that loads in the news and the latest features and so on. It's got like a custom page for plugins that lets you search for all of the plugins. But if you go to, I think it's /content, you can see that really it's just a Datasette instance with some custom templates. And if you want to see how that works, the datasette.io GitHub repository has all of the code for that. And really, it's just a case of having this having these custom template files, which are a bunch of HTML. And then I've got a plugin that lets you run SQL queries. So you can say for row in SQL brackets, select star from news, and then start outputting stuff. The reason I'm excited about this pattern is it gives you, like, lots of people use static site generators to build websites these days. And they have loads of benefits because they can't break. It's hosted on Amazon S3 or whatever. It's never going to stop working. The problem is when you want to have like 3,000 pages on that site, and everyone complains about these long build times. So my pitch here is that you can do this instead. You get the 3,000 records in your database, but you only have to have the one template. And it's still robust because you're deploying it to these almost static hosts. If you put it up on Cloud Run or Vercel, you don't have to worry about server logs and all of that kind of stuff. If it breaks, the provider will just reboot it from you from scratch. So it lets you bake that data in with the templates and set up actually quite sophisticated websites that are essentially just, it's the same thing as a regular Datasette with some custom templates and styling. A site that I run on this basis is called nichemuseums.com. This is my pandemic paused hobby of trying to find tiny museums to go to. And again, this is just Datasette. It's got things like a use my location button that shows me the nearest niche museum to me. This is the Burlingame Museum of Pez Memorabilia, which sadly closed a couple of years ago. But the key idea here is this is actually like an interactive application that people can subscribe to feeds from and find museums near you. And it costs me, I think, nothing to run because I think I've got this one on Vercel. And again, it's just Datasette. It's a Datasette table with 102 rows in it, and then some SQL queries that know how to like pull out the things closest to latitude and longitude. But yeah, I think this is really interesting, and I'm hoping I can convince more people to experiment with this pattern of deploying entire websites.
I think that is amazing. I would love to do that. I hope to be the second person to actually have a blog that's run by Datasette. I'm trying to work toward that, but maybe somebody listening will also get inspired and look into how to do this. The documentation is really, really great. Simon is on Twitter and is available and often responds to queries that are thrown out there. And there's a whole community of people who are working on this right now, which is just great. And it's the best kind of situation because somebody out there is going to try to help you out and solve whatever question you have on how you might use something like this for your project. So Simon, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really, really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing what else comes.
Cool. Thanks very much. This was really fun.